So I've already started recording, so we can go ahead and just sort of get into things. But I guess just sort of to kick things off, since we are doing this as a cross promotion, we'll talk a little bit about what each of our podcasts are and what they entail. Our podcast, the Proton Pack, obviously the name is a little homage to one of our favorite movies, mine and Tony's,
Course.
Ghostbusters. And, it's sort of play on words. And, we cover sort of the latest news in TV, movies, video games, toys, all really genre related. So you won't find us talking about, Beverly Hills 90210. It's more, Game of
Damn,
Thrones.
I was ready to talk about that today too.
I
Oh,
know. I'm out. I'm out, guys. I'm sorry.
But we try to record weekly. The show that we do is usually broadcast live. In fact, we are going to be broadcasting live directly after recording this. And we do it on YouTube, on Facebook, and then, of course, the audio goes out pretty much anywhere you get podcasts, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it. And it's been a lot of fun. We compile this information together, and, having Tim on now is one of the things that we really wanted to start getting into in interviewing people that are part of the industry or have the same loves that we do. And, it's a nice way to cross promote at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I like it too. We're all Nevada boys too, so that's a
That's
nice
right.
thing. Even though we're all not in Nevada currently, Chris is. And,
I am.
Tim and I are not, but
No, we are not. I
no.
kind of wish I was, but I'm not.
I was gonna say I thought that was cool. You just posted your vacation with your daughter on there. I didn't
Yeah.
get to watch all of the videos, but I got to watch some of video one. That was really cool.
Oh, Yeah. No,
That's
I
great, you're back.
enjoy making those for people who, want to know more about my childhood in Reno. I
Oh,
try to go back at least once a year now and record a little bit of something about my childhood. And I did a video last year with my brother. Him and I went back to Reno and we went inside of our childhood homes because I wrote them a letter asking if I can go inside and video
Oh, that's
for a
cool.
YouTube video,
Oh,
and they let
neat.
us in. And so it's so cool to be back inside my little childhood home. One was in Reno, the other one was in Sparks.
No kidding. Yeah. So
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I actually live in Sparks,
Oh, okay.
way up in the Wingfield Springs area. But,
I lived right next to Alice Maxwell Elementary School.
oh, no kidding.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome. And it's funny that, for people who don't live in Reno, they don't understand, sort of the culture. And it is really a hidden little gem.
it is.
You
It
have
is.
beautiful mountains to the west. You've got some great things to do in town. It was a little bit of a dying town for a while, but now it's really growing. And, we're the next Silicon Valley.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of big businesses come that way. I saw too. A lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
big companies.
Yeah, we've got Tesla, Google, God, you name Amazon's going to be here, Apple.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's a growing town, but the nice thing is it is still a little bit of that hidden gem.
Yep, exactly. And I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for Reno Sparks. So I love it there.
That's awesome. Yeah. I also I had a lot of flashbacks when you were at Bowers Mansion. Man, I have been there since I was a little guy too, and it's good to know that the pool is still green and you didn't jump into it. So that's a good
I have
thing.
never seen it any other color besides green.
No, I was always the old rumor was growing up was like their daughter drowned in it, and then they
I've heard that. I've heard that. Yep.
yeah. So I don't know if that was just the old ghost story. Then
It
you
probably
get
is.
spooked out, went to the park next door.
Well, and I see behind Tim, he's got a animation cell of Slimer. Is the
Yep.
pool
Yep.
like ecto cooler green color? Or?
It's very much that color. Very much that color.
So, and then Tony and I met Tim at the first Reno Pop Culture Con that we had
Yeah.
here over the summer, and he was nice enough to invite us on the podcasting panel, and it's been nice to sort of exchange things with him over social media over these last few months, and we've finally had a chance to join up and connect up. And so, Tim, for our listeners, why don't you give people an idea of what you do on your podcast?
Of course. So my show, like you said, is called Saturday Morning Rewind. What I like to do with my show is I like to take people back to their childhood with each interview that I do. So I've tried to focus on a voice actor that was pretty prominent in the years, 70s, 80s, maybe early 90s. That's what I grew up in. I was born in 1980. So some of my favorite cartoons were Thundercats, G.I. Joe, Transformers, all that kind of stuff. So I've had many of them on my show. Let's see, I've been doing it for 8 years now. I need to pull up a list of people I've interviewed. I always forget who I've interviewed over the years.
Well, I'm looking at it here. I mean, it's a little bit of everybody.
Yeah, it really is. I dabble into not just cartoons. I dabble into any kind of voiceover. I've had a lot of the, people who worked on Star Wars, maybe as a puppeteer or something. I haven't had the daughter of Jim Henson on talking about Jim Henson. So really, if you really like 80s pop culture, I think it's going to be a fun listen for a lot of you listeners out there.
Well, and it's not little names either. I mean, you've got big names like Billy West, Fry from Futurama, Ren from Ren and Stimpy, Kevin Conroy, Batman. I mean, the quintessential Batman voice.
I was his first ever Skype video interview.
No kidding.
He's never done one before I did it. So it was pretty awesome.
That's really cool.
Brad Dourif, who was Chucky, he was on the show. Great interview. Ed Asner was on the show.
Your most recent one, Tate Donovan, who was the voice of Hercules. And then, for those of us who are fans of Friends, he was Joshua.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But, and then, you've got people who do multiple voices. I mean, you name a cartoon of the 80s and they had some hand in it.
My favorite interview I've ever done was with Corey Burton. Now, he's not a really household name. He's a huge voice actor, but he's my favorite living voice actor right now. You guys would know him as a voice of Dale from Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers.
Oh, nice.
That's what you guys would definitely know him as. But he has been everything. He's all around the Disney parks. He is the voice of Captain Hook now. Not the original voice, of course, but he's the voice of him now. But he never does interviews at all. Like, I really don't know if he's ever really been interviewed. And I reached out to him, and his publicist said, yeah, he'll do it, but you have 20 minutes to interview him. So I was like,
no pressure.
20 minutes. I get to 20 minutes. I like to at least keep them 20 minutes long. That's my minimum I like. So it's not bad. But to interview your favorite living voice actor in 20 minutes is kind of hard. But I tried. And then if you listen to the podcast, I am trying to cut it off at about 19 minutes. But he keeps going and going and going. And so I was like, all right, sweet. It's his idea. I'll keep going with it. I have a lot to talk about. So we keep going. And I think around the 45-minute mark, I try to cut it off again. But he keeps going and going. We talked for 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And did you get that all in the podcast? Like that was your whole one?
Exactly. Yep, just that one. And I did cut a lot of it out because a lot of it was stuff he didn't want out there.
Okay.
He didn't want all released, which was cool that he felt comfortable talking to me, just chit-chatting with me and not just about work,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my favorite interview I've done.
Wait, and was his publicist chiming in at all? Like, hey, we got to go, or were they just
No. They
let him
weren't
ride?
even there at all. I don't think they were there whatsoever.
Wow.
So I don't think they even knew.
And, I think between the three of us, we're all sort of, voiceover geeks, considering, the eras that we grew up in. And a lot of people take for granted, the art of voiceover and especially animated movies nowadays, you get the big names. You get, Tim Allen, you've got Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, yeah.
And
Brad Pitt every now and then.
And Wilson, and a lot of them don't change up their name or their voices. It's just normal voice,
Exactly.
Whereas when we got to do the Reno Pop Culture Con, what was cool is you were so nice to just come up and introduce yourself to us and then introduce a lot of the voice actors. You're like, oh yeah, I'm friends with Katie Lee over here. She was in Muppet Baby stuff. And it was just really cool because you're like, oh, really? So it's always cool because you look at them and they do so many voices, and I just think that's really neat.
Yeah, Katie's a sweetheart. I've been friends with her for about, I think, 5-ish years, maybe 6 years. I don't remember when we first met, but I've been to her house a couple of times. Very, very sweet lady.
That's awesome. Now, how did you originally start getting connected with these voiceover actors?
Now, in order to tell that story, I kind of need to go even farther back to the year 2000 when I first started doing this kind of stuff. I started interviewing rock bands that I grew up loving from the 90s, because I love 90s grunge and that kind of stuff. So I would interview rock bands because there was a concert I wanted to get into that was sold out at the time. And I went on eBay looking for tickets, and it says free tickets. I think it was Fuel and Oleander, if you remember them.
Oh, yeah. Sacramento band Oleander.
There you go, yeah.
Dig 'em, yeah.
And so I checked out the listing, and it wasn't for tickets. It was like an ebook on how to get free concert tickets. And so I bought it. It was like $5. I bought it. They shipped me like this cheap printout on printer paper. And it told you to start it like at the time they called it e-zines. They weren't even called blogs back in the day. There's e-zine. And it's telling you to start a publication where you interview these rock bands and they'll give you free tickets. And so long story short, I did that for about, I think that was about 10 years I did that. A lot of big bands. I started interviewing actors as well. And then I started dabbling into voice actors on that same show as well. And I just realized that talking to them, they were just so much nicer than the rock bands and the actors I was talking to. And it always gave me goosebumps just hearing them talk. Because a lot of them you can hear, little characters that they voiced over the years. You can hear it when they say different words. And I just got a kick out of it. And then my father passed away in 2012. And I really started to go back and dwell on my childhood. And I started watching all these cartoons that I loved as a kid. And I was like, you know what? I want to do a show where I interview all the people I admired from when I was a kid. And that's how I started it.
And then from there, you just started reaching out to...
I did. Well, here's the behind the scenes that not too many people know about my first ever interview with Michael Bell. He was my first interview. He was, of course, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and all that kind of stuff. Huge, huge voice actor. He kind of owed me a favor because he told me he was going to do an interview for my old podcast, the Rock Bottom podcast, where I interviewed rock bands and actors. And he dropped out. And I remembered that. And I was like, dude, remember that one time you were supposed to do an interview on my show and you weren't able to make it? Do you think you can do it now and be my first ever guest? And he did it. So I needed to thank him because without that big name for the first ever episode, I don't think I'd be where I'm at now.
That's what got the ball rolling.
I think so, because Stitcher featured my podcast for the whole entire month just because of that one episode.
That is cool.
So, yeah. Now, the audio was horrible.
Well, isn't that usually how it starts? You start like with really crap audio or kind of there's glitches and issues, and then as time goes, gets a little more professional and a little bad.
Back when I used to record every interview with like a headset connected to my cell phone.
Yeah. Little earbuds and the inline mic.
It was so bad. So don't go back and listen to that one. I actually did another interview with him. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. One of my best interviews I think I've done with anybody, and that's with Michael Bell. So check that one out instead of the very first episode.
So don't go to one. Don't start the bottom. Just go right to Lauren Lester and just roll from there.
Maybe.
That was your second one. So. Okay.
Well, and it's funny how things sort of parallel. Tony and I, we started a rock podcast called Tales from the Pit. And it was one of those things where, we talked music news. We talked, because between the two of us, we've probably been to thousands of concerts.
Yeah.
And
so many.
And everyone has its story. And, we would go through and talk about, experiences and things that we had. And what we quickly started to realize is that, while we had a great love of it and there was a small audience that had that same sort of love, it was hard to reach a wider audience.
It was. I agree. Yeah.
And so, the other thing we found ourselves doing is we would talk pop culture and, hey, did you see the latest trailer for this? Did you check out this video game? Oh, did you hear they're bringing this cartoon back? And we realized that we were talking more about that than music.
Yeah.
And decided to sort of shift our focus over to the pop culture side of things. And, it's one of those things where we grew up again in those same sort of eras, but I went to film school, and I've seen sort of the backside of film production and everything that goes into it, and have this weird sort of thing in my head where if I meet somebody face to face, I can't remember the name 5 minutes later.
I'm
but
the same exact way.
if you ask me an actor or a role from an obscure movie back whenever, I can pull those things out. And so, we just started rolling with it. We really didn't have a format to begin with. And it is one of those things. You go back, you listen to the early stuff, and you're like, ugh, boy, that's rough. And over time, it just sort of, built its format. And, we've gone on now to, broadcasting live video. And it's been a really fun journey to get there.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then you said that. Now, how did you guys meet? The two of you, how did you two meet?
High school.
We met in high school. Actually, I was working at a video store, and Chris was working at the movie theater in Carson City. And
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you lived in Reno at the time, but Video Maniacs, if you remember them.
That sounds familiar.
Old school.
I don't remember the name of the store I always went to, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was a fun one. And I worked there, and Chris and I actually, through a mutual friend of ours, Adam, he was kind of our gateway to meet each other. We ended up, ironically, at an underage party we weren't supposed to attend.
What? No.
Non-adult. We were doing adult things when we shouldn't have. And Chris couldn't go home, so he ended up coming to my house, and we had to pretend to be sober and stuff. And I remember Chris puked in a bag, and then we threw it in my neighbor's backyard, and that's how we became friends, was just from some degenerate high school stuff. And it was funny because it was actually what got us wasn't pop culture. It was the love of Megadeth, actually, the Countdown to Extinction album. And then all of a sudden, Chris is really into Dream Theater, and I like Dream Theater, and I liked Queensryche, and Chris liked Queensryche. And then it was the love of mutual music. Like, we were definitely into Metallica and things like that. And it started with that. And then you get to know things like, oh, you play Nintendo? Oh, me too. What's your game? This is that. Oh, you get the Sega Dreamcast? Me too. So it just really became the common bond, which just started with underage fun into music, into this. And we've been friends since then. And it's been a hell of a journey. It's been cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, on your show, you've got a couple co-hosts or folks that join you as well?
Not for the interviews, because I've told them this. I don't trust anybody else with interviews besides me. Because not to be, conceited or anything, but in my way of thinking, if anything goes wrong, I want it to be because of me, not anybody else.
Right.
And to talk over people is kind of hard when you're interviewing somebody. So I do the interviews 100% by myself. And then I think it was 2 years into doing the show, maybe a year and a half, I got this really epic iTunes review from somebody. It was a very detailed 5-star review. And his username on iTunes was the same as a guy who was following me on Twitter. So I was like, oh, it's got to be the same guy.
Right.
So I started chatting with him. We started talking every single day on Twitter. And then, realized like, hey, this kid, well, not kid, he's only like maybe 6 years younger than me. But, this guy has the same interest as me. And let's see if he wants to join the show. So we kind of do the same thing you guys kind of do, where when he's on the show, we chat about cartoons from our childhood. Mm-hmm. So we try to pick like one specific cartoon for each episode or one topic for each episode. And we've been doing that for, God, let's see, the podcast is almost 8 years old. I think he's been part of it for like 6.5 or maybe 6 years. One of my closest friends too. It's crazy,
That's awesome. And it just was something basic, just a comment. That's so cool.
Exactly. Yeah. I searched him out and I was like, yeah, this kid, he knows how to talk. Because, if he was talking and typing like the younger generation, not ending in periods and commas and everything, I probably wouldn't have asked him to join the podcast. But I can tell he was educated, not to be mean, but you want somebody who sounds proper we doing a podcast, and we became really good friends. I remember the first time I met him in person. I think we were going to the D23 Expo in Anaheim. And so we shared a hotel, and my wife was like, "Are you sure you want to do that? Share a hotel with somebody you've never met?" But I do crazy stuff, and I don't care. We talked for, I think it was like 2 years. He was on the show. I'd never met the guy, and we finally met each other in Anaheim, and really cool guy. And then Jacob, the other co-host, he kind of came along the same way. He was a listener as well, and I think he sent me a friend request on Facebook, and he was doing a podcast too, and he kept on mentioning our show on their podcast, and we became good friends. And so for his episodes, we talk about retro video games.
Okay.
Mainly NES, SNES, that kind of stuff.
I love it. I see it here up on your page for just little notes here and there. I mean, you guys have some good reviews. I mean, a lot of good games that obviously, just trigger, like you said, you love to go back to your childhood because it brings you back to just great memories. And that's me on a Friday night going to the local M&M Video. That was a mom pop shop in Carson City, and doing my mom would let us rent one Nintendo game, or we get it at the Super Nintendo era. We started going to Video Madness, and we would get our Super Nintendo game, and I'd always con my sister, and I would tell her if she picked a really dumb game, I'd be, oh man, like, we should really try this one. I think this one's more fun. And for whatever reason, I got my way a lot of the times, and then she'd be pissed because I hog the system. So
well, and the nice thing is we're in this time period now where nostalgia is back, and so you see the re-release of these mini systems, and the Nintendo Switch. I spend more time playing the NES and the SNES games than I do actual Switch games.
I need you guys' gamer number or whatever, because I just got a Switch for Christmas. So
absolutely.
yeah, that'll be fun. And but it's one of those things where you can tell that the people that are in charge of entertainment now were people just like us.
They're our age.
And the movies that are coming out, Marvel, for instance, they're doing a great job of taking the canon and the things from the comic books that people love and incorporating those into movies that people want to see, as opposed to, the old attempts at comic book movies where they just take a name and a likeness and they run completely out of range with it and wonder why it doesn't work.
Yep, exactly. Now, what were some of your guys' favorite cartoons growing up?
Well, I'm a huge Transformers fan. I've been collecting Transformers for years, G1 all the way through, the latest, Siege lines. And, that's one that's always resonated with me. But, grew up with Thundercats and G.I. Joe and Silverhawks. And, those were my main, Saturday morning cartoons.
And GoBots?
Not so much GoBots,
because they were the Kmart Transformers.
I liked GoBots. I don't care. They were different. You can't even compare them to Transformers. They were different. They're more of a kiddie version. So I always liked GoBots as well.
Yeah, and the toys were fun. I mean, they were the little Matchbox size.
They're simplistic. They're not super hard to get together.
Exactly. Yeah. And, when you're a kid in the 80s, story wasn't a huge thing in the cartoons we grew up with. Most of it was just, basic story, action, same formula just to sell toys. And
which is a weird thing. I didn't get that as a kid. I was just always like, oh, they made toys of a cartoon. I mean, I got to have it. I mean, obviously, if you can see behind, kind of, I don't know, but if I can't line up my hand, but I have the Ninja Turtles right there, pop figures, and I'm a huge Ninja Turtle guy. I think growing up, my favorites, of course, as a little guy, I was into Masters of the Universe. I had all those. Then I was Thundercats. I was Panthro in for Halloween one year. My mom made me this bitchin' Panthro costume. It was way cool. And then, of course, Ninja Turtles hit, and I was all about them. And
here's my turtle.
Oh, I love it.
That's so cool.
Look at that movie Raph. Damn it!
He was on the show too. Josh Payas. I had him on the show as well. The voice of Raphael.
Oh, it's good. Looking back, I mean, they're all on Netflix now. I ain't gonna lie. I still like them. I dig
Yeah, I
them.
know.
I mean, I the only thing I don't
Some-
like nowadays is the current Ninja Turtle reboot, the Rise. Not a fan of that, but I did like the last incarnation of the Ninja Turtles. That was
Yeah.
it had a lot of feel of the 80s that we grew up in. In the 90s, I would have to say I got into the Disney afternoon stuff. So, you know,
Yep.
a lot with your podcast. I'm huge on Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, DuckTales. Before that, I liked Gummy Bears. That The Adventures of the Gummy Bears was cool.
And then, of course, X-Men animated series.
X-Men, yeah, that's where I was gonna go. That was probably my last big cartoon I got into in the 90s.
Yeah, maybe me as well. Yeah. I stopped. People can't believe. I get a lot of emails from listeners, and they reference newer cartoons, and I don't watch new cartoons. I haven't watched a cartoon that's, let's see, I think I stopped around 96.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't watched a single thing since then, honestly. Maybe Justice League is the only thing I maybe have seen, and Futurama, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, those ones. We're fans of Futurama, and you know, of course, The Simpsons. But I don't label those as those childhood.
No, they're
Simpsons
like recurring.
Like, your parents wouldn't really let you watch it. I don't know. My parents let me watch it, but I know a lot of my friends couldn't. So.
Yeah, my parents let me. I just was kind of looked down upon by other parents.
Yes, exactly. I was in that same boat.
Yep.
You know, I had all the VHS recorded tapes.
Yeah.
It's like Simpsons episode, blah blah to whatever. You know, and now it's great because with Disney Plus, you have access to every single episode. And I wish they'd put Futurama on there. I love Futurama. That was a fantastic show.
You used to video your favorite cartoons too?
Oh. Absolutely. Absolutely,
Yep.
man. And it was a big mix. It was like you'd have like Super Mario Brothers Super Show in the morning, and then Super Mario World, and I'd have Ninja Turtles, some X-Men, and they were always out of place X-Men. And unfortunately, sometimes I couldn't record it just right, and I'd cut off some of it. And
I was good, man. I was good. I had a separate tape for all my cartoons.
Oh, see, that's
I remember
awesome.
Eek the Cat had his own tape.
Beetlejuice
had his own tape. X-Men, Turtles had their own tape, and I'd cut out every commercial.
Oh yeah.
Which I regret doing because that's what's cool to watch now are these old commercials.
Right. Retro toy commercials and
Exactly, they're
cereal
awesome.
and you name it. There's so much
I just
fun
ran
to go back and
across.
watch.
I just ran across some. So on my Facebook page, I posted those 2 clips of my dad on the Reno News.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
which were awesome, by the way.
Yeah, I never realized that if I continued the tape, my mom taped the whole entire 2-hour block, and there's commercial breaks for Reno. I was getting goosebumps because I had not seen Reno specific commercials in years.
Yeah, and they were always so cheesily filmed too. Yeah, just really bad.
Yeah, so bad. And so I saved those. I put them on my hard drive. I saved those too, and maybe I'll use those somewhere. I don't know, but it's just really cool to watch the little commercials.
It is, and that's the joys. Luckily, YouTube, a lot of people are able to get some of those, but some of those local ones, like you said, you can't get. Like in Carson City, we had this place called Panda Express, and had this really happy Asian guy, and his motto every time he's like, "Good food, good time. Panda Kitchen, Highway 50 East Carson City, where it's okay to use a fork." And all of everyone that's our age now that lived and grew up in Carson City remembers that Panda Kitchen thing. You know, they always quote that crap. Now kids today, they don't know what the hell that is. They don't do it anymore. But you know, I'm with you with that nice throwback. I wish I still had access to my old VHS tapes.
I actually don't have any of them anymore. I don't know what I did with them. I think I just taped over them over the years. I think I put movies on them over the years. I didn't think I'd want them.
I have one embarrassing one, which is kind of cool. I sent it to Chris back when WCW was around. Chris and I went and saw a taping of WCW Thunder, and we got right behind Bobby Heenan and Mike Tenay, I think. But you could see Chris and I in our high school form right behind Bobby Heenan, and the main event was Ric Flair and Sid Justice versus Hulk Hogan and
awesome.
You know, something Randy Savage maybe. I don't know.
Boy, I don't even remember.
But we saw a lot of big big time
Sounds like
stuff there. I mean, you look back and it's actually on the WWE network, so you kind of go to that terrible Reno show. And Chris and I are on the network there. Yeah, Proton Pack circa
97, 98,
98, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Now, since you guys are fellow Nevada kids, I may have talked to you about this at the RenoCon. Do you remember a local TV show around 85-ish, maybe 86-ish? It was a lot like Barney. So there was like a kid studio audience, and there was, I want to say he was a cowboy, like as the host. And I think it was a woman in a caterpillar costume or maybe a butterfly costume as the sidekick. Does that sound familiar at all?
I picture Reading Rainbow with that, but
no.
But it's not that. No.
And I actually wasn't in the Nevada area, so when I grew up, we moved around, pretty much once every 2 years, and so I didn't end up here until high school. But if you could find that, that'd be worth it.
I'm trying to find it because I'm actually in an episode of it.
Oh, no kidding!
Yeah, I was one of the kids in the audience, and I remember they even went to me during one of the songs, and I wasn't singing. That's probably why they went to me, because I don't sing. Even now, I don't sing. And so the camera was like zooming in on me while they were singing the song. It was I think it was my first grade class. We were all the audience, and I cannot find. It was before we had a VCR, so we never taped it. And I'm trying to see if I can find that anywhere. So if anybody's listening and that sounds familiar, please hit us up, because I've been trying to find that for years.
We do have a lot of followers from Nevada, so if any of our childhood friends
there you go.
Are watching, please think, because I mean, I'm born and raised in Carson City, and I don't remember it, but
it would have been on in Carson City. We may have even drove to Carson City to film it. I don't remember where we drove, but it was on the Reno. I don't even remember what station it was.
Because the only one I remember growing up for childhood stuff, I remember KOLO, because my parents watched that, News Channel 8, so I remember like Tad Dunbar was a big figure for a long time. It's one of those goofy things I remember as a kid. Other than radio personalities, I remember a lot of radio stations growing up.
Oh yeah, dude, I used to listen to the radio, and I don't remember at the stations in Reno, but I used to, in the summertime, I used to call them almost every day to request music.
Well, did you do 93.7 KWNZ?
What kind of music? What kind of music was
it? Was
that?
The popular music.
That's probably what it was.
Yeah,
that's probably what it was.
I remember getting on the radio like, "Can you play this song?"
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you're like, "I heard my voice. It's cool."
I remember one time she asked me, it was like a dedication hour, so I had to make it. I had to do a dedication, which I didn't want to do. I just wanted to request a song. So she was like, "Well, do you have a dedication?" I was like, yeah, my mom. I dedicated to my mom. And then she was like, "Well, why do you want to dedicate it to her?" I was like, for cleaning my room.
And did they play it?
They did play. They had played that interview too.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's always good. That was the fun times too back then, when you didn't have like cell phones. You had to be real quick to call, and it was like caller 9 right now.
Oh, and I won so many contests on the radio station. I remember winning. It wasn't NASCAR, but the local racetrack or whatever. I won tickets to that. I won tickets to the water park. I forget the name of it now in Sparta.
Wild Island.
Yeah. So many things I've won. I've won so many things I didn't even pick up.
Yeah, you're like, I ain't going. I used to win a lot off the rock station out there, 104.5. I remember winning a lot of different things there.
Back when it was up off of McCarran and Sutro?
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the cool things I won was a Simpsons package. I knew a Simpsons trivia question, and I answered and I won a Bart Simpson skateboard in high school.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't ever open it. I was just like, I'll hold on to it, see what happens. And then someone broke into our apartment in Reno and jacked it.
So God.
It was sitting in my car, and shame on me. Somebody really wanted that El Barto skateboard.
That's awesome. Now, so speaking of video now, Tim, you also do YouTube videos, compilations of voice actors or toy unboxings as well. Was that
those two things I have to kind of dwindle down?
Okay.
Because the new COPPA law that came to be in January on YouTube, they're really getting strict on videos that feature toys or cartoons. So, Yeah. So I kind of dwindling those down. I'm more focusing on vlogs or like those Reno trips with my daughter, that kind of stuff now. So I'm really just going to focus on those things from here on out. Or like travel videos. I'm going to do like filming locations for retro 80s movies, stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sort of go back to where things were filmed and
Yep, exactly. I'm starting to plan a Back to the Future one at some point that I'll do because that's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I actually was telling Chris before we did this. That's one of the videos I got to watch of yours, and I just thought, like, when you did that video, the entire vlog, like you opened up the scene where you're like Marty in bed, and you great Scott going off, and then you get that all rolling. What went into making all that? Because you did such a good job. I mean, you had the DeLorean pick. You had someone in a DeLorean pick you up. You went down to well, it made it look like you instantaneously went to Florida, in the time machine. But yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was a fun one to do. Like you said, I'm wearing Marty's clothes and I'm in the bed. So it's like the opening sequence, or not opening sequence, the first, within 10 minutes of the first Back to the Future, where he's in bed and Doc calls him, like, hey, come here, Marty, you need to get to my place, So I kind of try to redo that. I even had the same exact clock in the background. And I even looked on eBay and found the same exact pillowcase that he had in that scene.
No kidding.
I didn't catch that. I caught the Diet Pepsi can.
Yep.
And I saw the alarm clock, obviously the shirt. I mean, you had it down to a T. It was freaking awesome.
So I was planning that video for a very long time. And like you said, you didn't even notice the pillowcase.
No, I didn't even catch that one.
I was so happy to find that on eBay because it's not even a pillowcase that's easy to find. I just had to like search different keywords like tan, striped, black pillowcase, and finally one listing popped up after like hours of me looking for it, and there it was.
I gotta ask, was it used?
I don't know.
It's a used pillowcase from Back to the Future.
I use it now for myself as my personal pillowcase because it's from Back to the Future, but it was so hard to find. But yeah, a lot of details into that first 5 minutes of the video. Like I said, I found somebody with a DeLorean. Actually, he has 5, I believe, DeLoreans.
Holy cow.
Yeah. He lives just an hour north of me. And I remember I ran into him at a convention here in Montana, and I Googled, I didn't know his name, so I had to Google like news reports of the convention. I finally found a caption with his name. Then I saw he had a Facebook page, and I sent him a message, and like a month later he responded and he said he thought it was a good idea. So yeah, that's how that came to be. And that's when I was sad, because when I filmed that scene, I realized I'm too tall to own a DeLorean.
Oh no.
I'm 6'4", and if you go back and watch the video, when I'm closing the door behind me, I have to tilt my head to even close the door. And so there's no way I can even drive a DeLorean.
Well, it's good as you panned really quick, and you had instant, like you see the flux capacitor, and then you just went right into it, which I thought was cool. And I know the whole thing is you got to meet the cast there, and I think your vlog videos are so well done. Like even the one where you just posted with your daughter being back in Nevada, I loved the time lapse, and then you just stop the time lapse when the tent blows and it like lands on your poor daughter, and she's like, ah! And then you guys do the hike, and then you're like, this is much better than when it was windy earlier when you were at Davis Creek, which again, a nice childhood throwback. And somewhere I used to go a lot camping as a kid. So
yeah, I put a lot of thought into my videos. I don't want to just throw them out there. I actually usually kind of write out ideas, shot lists and everything like that. A lot of times I don't end up doing it, but it's nice to have an idea of what you want before you do it. So
yeah, you can tell you definitely take the time. I look forward to seeing some of your other vlog videos. And, while I think that's a bummer with the new laws and things that you can't do a lot of the cool stuff. I mean, I think it's really neat that you're going off to do other things. I mean,
what's nice is that I have a lot of old sealed toys that I was going to open on those videos. But now that I can't do it, I actually sold quite a few of them, and I bought new camera gear. So the video should look a lot better here on out.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
It wasn't a bad thing that it happened. I think it's a good thing. I focus more on my own material that I want to create instead of, things that my heart wasn't 100% into.
Right. You think you want, or you think that people want to see, but it's
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you think that too, because there's like that kid, that Ryan's
Yeah,
World,
I know.
and that dude
Yeah.
that little kid, all he does is review toys, and kids love him. I'm
Yeah.
dead, kids everywhere. It's nuts, and it's so weird because when I met Chris, I've never met a guy that had more toys than Chris. Like I didn't have any of these pop figures. No, I mean obviously they didn't exist back then, but just Chris's love for toys. He had Transformers that were probably just, if he had a back wall, it'd be all Transformers.
Yeah.
It was always really neat. And it's cool to see, like, when you were reviewing toys and busting those out, it's like, all right, man, this is cool.
Well, you get the nostalgia of opening those blister packs, and
Yeah, I know.
and
Then you feel so bad for some of them, though.
right. And it's funny because you go back and some of them are so hard to find, and they have these collectible values, but then others are worth virtually nothing, and you can find them for so cheap. But they bring back so much nostalgia and so much of what we grew up with.
Yeah. Now, what about you guys? What's your all-time favorite toy?
I'll let you start, Tone.
I think for me, it had to have been a toss-up between the actual Castle Grayskull or Snake Mountain. I think I really loved Snake Mountain a lot as a kid. For those listening, that's Masters of the Universe, if you don't know. But what was cool about Snake Mountain, it was this creepy purple castle that opened up, and it had this weird ferret black microphone thing that if you went in, it would echo, like you pretend you're Skeletor or something. I think as the little guy, that was my big favorite up until, Ninja Turtles came out. And then it was, having like the party van and just collecting all the different variants of the figures. So if you had, I think one of my favorites was Sewer Surfing Mike. That was kind of a big one that I would take with me places. That was cool. But nowadays, it's weird. I got in that phase where I was like, man, we don't have toys anymore. And now I love collecting. As weird as it sounds, it started as just hand-me-downs from friends. They're like, I have this Funko Pop. You might like it. Here you go. And now I've been collecting Funko Pops. And that's a dangerous.
It is. They're everywhere.
A little addiction because they have everything you can imagine. So I'm always saying, Chris, I'm like, dude, check this out. Like, did you see they're releasing the 35th anniversary of Back to the Future? So there's just crazy. And I have this one Funko Pop back here where it's Marty in the DeLorean.
Yeah.
And that was given to me. And I freaking love that. And so now they have these other ones coming out from Back to the Future 2. And they've got Doc in the clock tower, and I'm just like, oh crap, because I just bought the Ghostbusters this last year for an anniversary. So, but that's mine.
$10 here, $10 there, and
oh, dude, they add up like crazy. I quit drinking Diet Dr. Pepper, and I used to be a big Diet Dr. Pepper guy. And today on my road trip, I just got back from South Dakota, and I noticed if you bought 3 Diet Dr. Peppers, you got a free Funko Pop, and it was the little sweets guy with the Dr. Pepper can.
Yeah.
So I bought 3 things of Diet Dr. Pepper just so I could get this thing, and it's on order now, and it was completely free, minus the $5 I spent for 3 Diet Dr. Peppers that are probably just going to sit there. So, yeah, I would say, unfortunately, that's kind of a new collection obsession. So that's me. How about you?
Well, for me, obviously Transformers, and I grew up with the G1. I had friends who had the different planes, Starscream, and which were awesome. But for me, the biggest thing was when we went on a family trip to Germany, and really didn't know much what was going on, but we would stop in these little toy stores. And I would find the individual combiners of Devastator, the G1 Devastator. Mm-hmm. And throughout just that whole trip through Germany, finally collected them all. And the whole idea that you've got these transforming robots that then combine into this much larger robot just blew my mind as a kid.
Yeah.
And was always a fan of the combiners for Transformers. And then, of course, you fast forward to today and, what Hasbro's doing with, their current line of Transformers, plus what they're doing with the Masterpiece figures, that nostalgia back to the die cast and the detail and the intricate transformations. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
What about you, Tim? What was yours as a kid?
This is kind of hard to pick, but I think my favorite, if I have to think about it, I think would be the G.I. Joe series of toys in the early or mid 80s. I had probably 30 or 40 of them when I was a kid, mainly because I remember my parents going to a yard sale in Reno and coming home with a box of like 25 of them from a yard sale. So I remember getting a ton of them. So I think that's my favorite. I also had a ton of Turtles. I remember getting for Christmas one year, I think it was 1990, maybe 91, I got like 4 of the Tailspin figures for Christmas. I remember loving those and had a lot of Ghostbusters toys. I think those right there would be all my favorites of my childhood, I think. And of course, Lego. I was a huge Lego kid as a kid. So
yeah, I'd say us too. I was also big on Hot Wheels and Micro Machines.
Oh, Micro Machines, yeah, man. I
real into all that.
Yeah.
The guy that talked a million miles a minute.
Yeah, I've had him on the show too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He talk really fast too.
I don't remember. I don't think. I mean, a little faster, I think, than most people, maybe. not so bad.
Yeah, John Machida. He did the voice of Blur in the Transformers series.
Yep, sure did.
I just remember him all the time with that mustache. You gotta get the new Micro Machines. Micro Machines is not the real thing.
Yeah, I remember going. That was like my baseball cards as a kid. I remember taking some of those to school and we'd trade. Micro Machines in school, and that's how I got my favorite all the time. Is the gray Lamborghini. I think I got in like '86 or '87. I think '86. And
that's back when there was nice hard die cast. They had the rubber tires.
Yep.
Yeah.
Before all the plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool to talk toys because I'm having all these flashbacks. A week ago, I tried here in Fort Collins. We have something called That 80s Pizza Place, and you go in there, man, and it is nostalgia to the rim. They have old school action figures. They have video games, all these things from the 80s, man. It's a nice throwback. But I remember one of the things I had too was called Muscle.
Yes.
Little pink wrestlers. Yeah. So I had that and they had an unopened package sitting there. I'm just like,
oh God,
holy crap, I had those, and that was the big thing. Cause as a little kid, as weird as this is, I wasn't into WWF as a kid.
I wasn't, I mean, I kind of was. I liked Hulk Hogan as a figure.
Yeah.
But I don't think I really watched it. I played the video games. I love the video games.
Yeah, I got into that in the 90s because I saw when you're doing the pack video, I loved it because you opened up your luggage and then you're like, you put that Hulk Hogan buddy in there. And that's, like, I'm not done packing yet. And you stick that in, that cool camera illusion. I'm like, that's just good humor right there.
That was a good, I like to keep people entertained in my videos. Even if I'm talking, I want people to remain interested. So it's something I came up with.
No, I like it. It's totally got that good illusion. You're like, still not done packing yet. And it's just like this one little luggage.
With the Castle Grayskull in there.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys ever go down the rabbit hole of trying to find like old toy lines or cartoons that you vaguely remember, but for me, it was like looking for Bionic 6 and Centurions and Silverhawks, and it's one of those things like I have vivid memories, Cops, C-O-P-S, Cops, of these cartoons, and then nothing ever really came of them.
Yeah, I do that all the time, and what I do is I now collect old Sears and JCPenney catalogs from the 80s. And that's kind of how I trigger my memories. Like, oh, yeah, that was a cartoon. Or, yeah, that was a toy line I remember having. I just never would have known that's what it was. And so I have maybe 10 now, old Sears and JCPenney catalogs from the 80s. And they're just fun to go through, check out the prices, check out like the USS Flag for G.I. Joe is like $50 back then. Now you're lucky to find it for $2,000.
Right. Yeah. And that's crazy to think back then too. If we only knew now what we knew then collecting toys. I mean, there's a lot of toys I would have never opened.
I know. Or at least bought two of. I would have bought two of.
Yeah. There's so many toys I had that are worth, in mint condition, so much money. one of my biggest toy regrets, this is going to be kind of a silly and stupid story, but when I was married, my ex-wife, Cassie, she had a Michael Jackson doll. And it was the Thriller with the glove.
Yeah.
And the thing at the time wasn't worth anything because, you know, he had that child molestation stuff and all that weird stuff. So that toy wasn't worth crap.
Yeah.
So we donated it to the local Goodwill, just threw it in a box and get this. What are we going to do with this thing? Because she had old Barbies and stuff, and we aced that off. Well, he dies 2 weeks later. That doll goes for over $1,000 on eBay. And I went back to the, the Goodwill to see if I try to get it, and that shit was gone. And, unfortunately, so basically, you just never know with toys, you know, because that thing sat, and I'm like, this is creepy. Ain't no one want a Michael Jackson doll, but.
Yeah. I've told the show, I've told this on my podcast before, how I don't really own any of the toys from my childhood because I got a summer job in Yellowstone National Park when I was 19. And I still had I never played with my toys, of course, because I was 19, but I still kept them. You know, they're sentimental to me.
Right.
And I remember I got back from the summer and they were gone. And my parents had a yard sale and they sold all of my toys. Every toy was gone. All my G.I. Joes, Turtles, every one of them gone. It's nice to have back. I think I've bought back maybe 90% of them now, though, that I lost. But it's not the same. They weren't mine.
They weren't yours. Somebody else's. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that too. I went back home to Carson, and I was when I did the road trip last summer, I was gonna take my toys home. And what I remember being in that box was a lot of Ninja Turtles, some He-Man figures. I think I had a big giant Mean Gene Okerlund doll, or not doll, but it was an action figure that was like this big. A couple of wrestling figures and stuff like that, and my dad had tossed them. They don't exist no more.
It's awesome.
Crap. Wow. I'm like, I just really wanted the Ninja Turtle and He-Man things. You know? I had one of those Ninja Turtles too, where like if you took the zip tie and you ran it through the shell, they would talk.
Yeah. Okay.
One of those. I remember that being in there. But I was definitely, I didn't show the frustration. I was like, well, okay, it is what it is. But on the inside, I was like,
I know the same way. I was like, yeah, I'm 19, you know, I'm trying to play it cool and all, but yeah, I was a little mad.
Yeah. Yeah, because I get that. You have that nice connection to it. It's just something about when you hear an old theme song or you have an old, just vivid memory of that, man, it takes you back to such a simple time. Yeah. And I love it. I know time travel is not real, but the whole fact that one thing can take you back in that moment.
Wait. Time travel's not real?
Well, it hasn't been discovered yet. Get on it. You're the brains of the operation.
Well, it's funny now because, you know, I've got two boys and, you know, going out and, you know, we have fun going to the toy store and picking out toys, but you know, it makes you wonder as a parent now, you know, will those toys have the same collectability or nostalgia factor that the toys that we grew up with did? And, you know, is it worth buying two or making sure that they're well cared for? You just don't know at this point, you know?
No, I don't think they will be. They just seem so cheaply made. I remember when the Thundercats reboot came out, 10 years ago? When was that? 10 years ago? And I bought almost every single toy of those when it came out. And I would say 75% of them are broken the first day we had them.
Yeah.
They were so cheaply made.
Yeah,
so I just don't think they're not going to be the same, I don't think.
No, because you're right. The way the old ones used to be made, like if you remember in like the He-Man action figures with the whole turning and stuff, had that real thick rubber band like between their legs and stuff that held it all together for them to move. Yeah.
Awesome.
That is way awesome. But that was the thing. I remember I had what was that space looking guy that had the blue face and he had like the solar system in his chest and spin him around, and I remember having that guy in that lost box. But those toys took a beating, man. You used to be able to clank them and freaking do whatever, man. And I think I still had the skunk man, and he still stunk. He still had that weird smell to him.
It's funny you bring that up because Skunkor's smell was patchouli. And so I had him in with all of my other He-Man figures. Every time I smell patchouli now, it instantly brings me back to He-Man figures.
Right.
It's like I have Moss Man here.
Oh, Mossman was sweet. The material of him, how he felt.
Yeah, and he kind of a little faint smell. Not, I don't know.
Dude, that is cool because I remember Beast, the red one, the big beastie guy.
Yeah.
He had that same kind of feel to him, man. That like velvety, like.
Yeah, and these are they're rare to find in this condition.
That is awesome.
All the fur is still on there.
Yeah, most of that flocking has come off over the years.
Yeah. It's one of the toys I unboxed. So it was brand new when I opened it. That's why it's such good condition.
That is so cool.
That is awesome. Boy, what was I going to say? Oh, I don't know. I know Tony wasn't big into comic books. I was a huge comic book collector growing up. And I don't know about you, Tim, but, I became a teenager in the era of the 90s where, everything started becoming collectible and first edition and number ones that today are worth nothing. Yeah, but then, my older comic books, certainly are, and
the 90s wasn't a good year for comic books. I think because everybody was collecting them. So there was too many issues out there to become collectible, I think.
Exactly.
Right. But yeah, I was huge on comics too. I remember the first ever comic book that I owned. I was laying on the floor in the living room in Reno, and Dad came home from work, and he tossed me a comic book that he got at his store, and it was the Flash versus Superman race.
Okay.
So that's my first ever comic book because I was a huge Superman fan because of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I still am. I think Superman is still my favorite, maybe Batman too. But yeah, I loved Batman, Superman. X-Men animated series got me super interested in X-Men. So they were my favorites probably in the 90s.
Yeah.
With X-Men.
Mine too.
But I also remember in high school, I used to get lunch money and I would never eat lunch. I would go to the store afterwards and buy the newest issues of whatever comic book it was out there. So
Right.
I loved comic books.
Well, and it's funny, you were talking about like the JCPenney catalog, and every time the new catalog came out, at least during the late 80s, early 90s, they had a package of like 20 comic books that were, all Marvel or all DC.
Yeah.
And, my parents would get that for me and my brother. And, it was so much fun just waiting for it to come in the mail.
Yeah.
You open it up, see what was in there. And, just being a kid as a comic book collector and trying to draw, comic book characters. And, it was so much fun. And it's nice to see that, I think hearkening back to the beginning of our conversation, what Hollywood is doing with these, characters and treating them the right way.
Yeah. So like you said, it's people our age now. It's good. And I'll show you too. I'm kind of a poser. I've got a couple X-Men comic books.
Other direction.
Just right here. So yeah, I should just use this hand and just go, whatever. But they're on the wall. And I got those at a flea market up the road for, I think it was like 5 of them for like $1. So, and they're old school X-Men ones. And
yeah, sweet.
They're in great condition. And I remember the ones that I collected were the Archie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I had all those too.
Yeah, those ones were good because they kind of followed the cartoon a little bit, but not so much. But they introduced it was the first time I saw Ray Fillet, that blue Ray guy, and first time I saw the Triceratons were there before the cartoon were in the comics.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, it looks like we're coming up on a hour of the recording, which I think is probably a good point for us to call it a day, and maybe we can do a round 2 here in the near future. But
absolutely,
I think it was fun catching up with you, Tim, and getting an insight into your background and what you do with your podcast, because it goes to show that not all pop culture podcasts are created equal, so there's room for everybody out there.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that I ran into you guys in Reno. When I saw you guys sitting there and I saw the name of the podcast, I was like, I think we're kindred souls,
Exactly.
Absolutely,
and then you told me you're from Reno as well, or from the area at least. I was like, that's awesome. We're around the same age, so we just clicked. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely, man. And it was so good. It was like having you there was that nice, warm, like for us, or being at our first convention, you just made us feel so welcome. And then you're like, here, come meet, come meet this person over here and then this one. And it was really nice. It was Jim Cummings that was over by us. And
Brian Cummings.
Oh, yeah, Jim's. Yeah. Oh, I said Brian. I said Jim. I meant
Yeah,
Brian.
yeah.
Sorry. Jim Cummings, Brian Cummings. Jeez. See, this is why you're the brains of the show. I'm not. Just kind of the humor. But so you'll be at the Denver Pop Culture Con coming up
Yes,
in
I
July.
will be.
Huh?
I just submitted my panel idea this afternoon.
Perfect.
So I'm probably gonna buy my flight this coming week, I think.
Oh, very cool. Well, when you get to Denver, man, we'll have to go hit up that 80s pizza and
Oh, absolutely. That would be
stuff.
epic. Yeah.
We're hopefully going to be a part of it. We don't have anything official yet.
Yeah, we've been working through the logistics and you know, because we have a high school reunion, I think, the week before, so may road trip it out there for it. But no, we're excited. We, you know, after how well things went with the Reno Pop Culture Con, being on that side of the table was so much fun, and you know, we definitely want to be more involved and you know, make it a regular thing.
Absolutely, and stay on their radar so they can keep having us there. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I saw a lot of the good guests that were at the Reno one are gonna be up at this Denver one again.
Yep.
So I saw Keith Coogan was the most recent one announced again. So
Yeah, saw that too.
dishes are done, man.
Very cool. Well, for our listeners, Tim, why don't you tell people where they can find your podcast, the name of the podcast, and that way, hopefully, we can get you some more subscribers.
Absolutely. If you just check out Saturday Morning Rewind, I'm pretty much everywhere you find podcasts. iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, pretty much everywhere podcasts are found, you'll find Saturday Morning Rewind, or just go to SaturdayMorningRewind.com and you can listen right there.
And you have a Patreon page as well.
I do, yeah. So if you just check out the donation tab on the website, you can go right there. And if you want to check out my YouTube channel, it's all right there too.
Very cool. Very cool.
What about you guys? Where can people find you guys? From our listeners out
Again,
there?
anywhere that you get podcasts, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, even the little ones. And then, as we mentioned, we broadcast the live video of each of our shows on YouTube, on the Proton Pack podcast page there, and on Facebook as well. And so you can see our ugly mugs and you know, see what we're doing as we're you know, recording the podcast. But it's added a fun little element to you know, the way people ingest the content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, very cool. Appreciate it, Tim. And I think this is probably a good time for us to end the recording and call it a day.
To be continued.
Exactly.
See you guys later.